Okay, go ahead about why you hate
All right,
cats.
look, this is why I hate cats, I think. This is the story of why I hate cats. So when I was a kid, we had this. I lived in the middle of the forest, okay? In the middle of the forest, literally. And we had this cat that showed up on our doorstep one night. I was like 6 or 7 years old or something like that. And I thought this was the greatest thing that's ever happened, right? Like, this is the dream. You're a little kid, wild animal shows up on the door, and we bring the cat in. I convinced my parents to bring the cat in. So the cat comes in and it's living in the house with us, right? So then, like, very soon after that happens, the cat has like a litter of kittens, like 10 cats. All right. So we have like these 10 cats. Now we live in the middle of nowhere. All right. So it's hard to find people who are going to take 10 families who will take cats in a town that's got like 3,000 people in it. It's not easy to do. So we've got these cats. We're giving them away left and right. We're trying as hard as we possibly can to get rid of them. We only give away like 3 or 4. We can't get. So now we've got 6 cats. Meanwhile, the mother cat leaves. Mother cat bails. Never comes back again. It's gone. Okay, so we've got these 6 cats, so we don't know what to do with them, right? So we're like trying to take care of them or whatever. Like, we're trying as best we can, but eventually, what ends up happening is they're spending a lot of time outside, and at some point, they just become essentially wild cats that never come inside ever. So now they're like roaming around the property, like completely wild cats. And they become really like violent and dangerous to the point where we didn't feel comfortable. Like, I had a very young sister, like for years, we wouldn't let her outside by herself because we were afraid that the cats would attack her. You know what? They lived underneath this giant deck we had. It was horrible. It was just absolutely horrible.
You're basically describing the plot of Aliens. It was just like they just keep multiplying and they're getting dangerous and they're breaking out. You have to stay inside. Is your sister's name Newt?
No, my sister's name is not Newt. Thank God for her.
All right, Ripley. All right, well, that's Justin's cat story. I'm sure some of our listeners are already annoyed that we aren't into our topics and talking about cats, but you know what? That's the show. Whatever. So. Jim, we're waiting on Jim to come back. So we're going to talk about Bernie Sanders and maybe the light at the end of the Corona tunnel on this episode of the In the Tank podcast. So this is episode 238 of In the Tank. Of course, I am your host, Donald Kendal. And joining me today, we have Justin Haskins, editorial director at the Heartland Institute. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Not much. Just trying to survive.
Catpocalypse. Also, right. Isaac Orr, he is a policy fellow at the Center of the American Experiment. How are you, good sir?
I'm hanging in there, Donnie.
Hanging in there. Do it.
Just barely. Isaac looks like he's on the edge here. I don't know if he's going to make it.
I think you could.
I might not.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac, you've told us before that you're more of an outgoing, an extrovert type. So you feel extra cooped up when you're forced to stick inside, aren't you?
This last week hasn't been so bad. I think I've just kind of like gotten used to it. But the first week and a half was brutal.
Yeah. All right. Also joining us, we have Jim Lakely, VP of Heartland. What's going on, sir?
Hello, gentlemen. Nice to be on the show.
Yes.
VP stands for very pretty.
Very. That's right.
That can't be right.
No, it's right.
Yes, sir.
Oh man. So guys, I think that it's Good Friday, right? So let's just talk about good things. We've had doom and gloom over the past 4 episodes of this podcast. So forget all that. On Wednesday, we had a doubleheader of good news, and I think that's going to be the primary focus of this podcast. So the second thing, I'll start off with the second thing that I found out as I was talking to Justin over the phone about the first thing that we'll talk about later. He says, "Oh my gosh, Bernie Sanders just dropped out," and I thought, "No way!" So I had to confirm. Went on the old Google, actually DuckDuckGo, and confirmed that was the case. Bernie Sanders was dropping out. So Justin and I were actually on the phone together, listening to his concession speech And I guess my first question to you, Justin, is were you surprised? Were you surprised that Bernie dropped out?
I was a little surprised. I mean, eventually, I guess it made some sense, but I sort of thought that the strategy at this point, because he's known for a while that it's not likely that he's going to win. And I thought the strategy at this point was, well, let's just hang on and hope that Joe Biden like forgets his name or something at a press event, and then he automatically becomes the nominee. Bernie does as a result of that, right? Like, why wouldn't you do that? Maybe he figures at this point, well, if that happens, I'm probably going to be the nominee anyway. But it was more likely to happen if you have debates and you have other things happening. If Biden is just kind of up there by himself now for the rest of this, it's less likely to occur. So I was a little bit surprised that that's what happened. He must really be feeling the pressure from a lot of people within the party. Normally he doesn't care about that because he's not even really a Democrat. But I think if you watch his concession, his announcement to suspend his campaign, one of the things he talked about was using his platform, using his leverage to get a lot more delegates in the convention on various platform committees and all this other stuff. And so I wonder if at some point they cut some kind of a deal or they did something that gives him a little bit more power in the convention itself to help shape the platform or something. I don't really know why these platforms matter. In a lot of ways, they're irrelevant, but maybe there was something there. I don't know, to be honest. It seems kind of strange. Maybe he's running out of money. That could be it. I don't know. But I guess regardless of why he dropped out, I'm very happy that he did.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll talk about that too. So obviously Bernie Sanders kind of represented the most collectivist set of platforms in the election. He supported a series of policies and tax increases that would have put the government in charge of pretty much most of society and the economy. He wanted to have the government completely run the healthcare sector. He wanted to have the government to do all college and education. Obviously, a ton of more regulations on pretty much every other facet of the economy that would basically have brought the economy down to its knees and wrecked the concept of individual liberty. So he is gone. But as we do with most of the candidates, as they dropped out during this whole thing, we reminisced about our favorite moments during their campaign. So, Isaac, do you have? I've got several here listed, but do you have a favorite moment?
Speed bag. That's it. Speed bag.
Yeah. So what Isaac's referring to is there's a legendary meme that was created out of Bernie Sanders attempting to punch a speed bag, and it ended up punching him back. Which, if you haven't seen it, apparently you're not on the internet a lot, but you should. It's pretty fantastic. Jim, any favorite Bernie Sanders moments?
By far, my favorite Bernie Sanders moment was during the debate when Tom Steyer went up to him and tried to talk to him, and Bernie just blew him off. Like, oh yeah, great, whatever,
yeah.
I mean, here's Tom Steyer, billionaire, right? He's really, when you're that rich, you don't really have a desire to make anybody like you. You're not a guy who has to please people, right, to get acceptance. But he so wanted Bernie's acceptance, and Bernie just blew him off. Okay, whatever. Justin, wasn't he asking for an autograph or something signed on his program or some kind of garbage? It was so embarrassing.
That's what we were joking about.
I think he actually said something like, "I just wanted to say hi."
Yeah.
I think that's what he was saying. And the best part was it happened right when Elizabeth Warren had awkwardly walked up to Bernie and said, I think that you just called me a liar on national television. And he's like, what? And then he's like, she says it again. And then he's like, we're not going to do this here. And then he's clearly super annoyed. So of course, Tom Steyer, it's the best time to approach Bernie Sanders is right after that happens. And Bernie, yeah, you're right. I'm surprised Bernie didn't just push him right out of the way and walk off the stage.
Good.
Get out of here, man. It was ridiculous.
Hey Bernie, can you sign my yearbook? Can you sign this for me? That'd be great.
It was so pathetic. It was so pathetic. And I got the sense that Tom Steyer, and I think this is probably true. I don't know, because you can never really tell when you're watching these things, personalities, are these personalities real or fake? But I get the very strong sense after seeing Tom Steyer out on the national stage for many months, or at least a few months, that he really is someone who just desperately wants people to like him. Just desperately, he wants it. Like, he just wants it so bad. He wants approval from people. And like you said, it doesn't really fit what you would expect from somebody like that. But I think so. I think he just wants to be, he's just happy to be there. Like, he'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars just to be in the conversation because he just wants a friend. Like, that's what it seemed like. It was really sad.
Yeah, I mean, you are basically describing all of these celebrities' action on climate change, all their virtue signaling on climate change. You just summed it up right there. Justin, do you have any other favorite moments during the Bernie Sanders campaign? I've got a few here. I think my favorite moment it's kind of a weird moment in a way, but I think my favorite moment is sort of a lack of a moment. He has, so after it came out, all these different video clips of people in his campaign saying terrifying things about throwing people in re-education camps and, you know, all of this kinds of stuff, like having a revolution, burning down Milwaukee, like the list went on and on and on. Multiple people.
That's what I'm most disappointed in Bernie.
Yeah, why is
as a Wisconsinite?
Yeah, you were hoping for Milwaukee to burn. I know, but the thing is like, he never says anything. He never denounced it. He never fired those people, as far as we know. Nothing. Like, I've never seen that before in politics. Like, I've literally never seen that where we paid staffers, not some volunteer, paid staffers say crazy stuff like we want to create gulags again. Like, literally, people said that. And you don't even deny it. You don't even denounce it. You say nothing. Yeah. And you just move on like it never even happened.
Right.
And then because you're, you know, a socialist and the press is all full of socialists, they don't ever question you about it. And then you don't even fire them or anything. And it happens not just once, but numerous times, and you say nothing. It just really showed me, in conjunction with everything else we know about him, just really how super crazy he is in a lot of ways.
I got three other favorite moments. One is Bernie accidentally almost walking onto the wrong private jet, because apparently that, you know, you're a man of the people and you just forget what private jet you're supposed to be on.
That's hard. That's hard. They look the same. They look very similar, you know?
That's right.
Very easy mistake.
Number two is during one of those debates where I think it was Bloomberg called him out on having 3 homes. And he's like, oh, excuse me. I got 1 home in DC. I got 1 back in Vermont where I live. And like a lot of people, I have a 3rd one, summer home. Well, excuse me. It's like, yeah, a lot of people have their summer homes that they're just going off to, of course. Man of the people here. And then probably my favorite part about all this is just because he was kind of in the spotlight and he's in the national conversation, blah, 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 that Larry David returned to reprise his role as Bernie Sanders in SNL, which he does a absolutely spot-on impression. And every moment of that we get is gold. So,
what's SNL?
Jim.
If anyone knows what SNL is, it's you, Jim. So.
Yeah, back in your day, it was funny.
That's right.
Back when there was like 4 channels and you had to know what was on every one of them.
Everybody watched SNL on Saturday night too, and they watched it live. That was like a real thing.
Right. Not on Hulu in the middle of the afternoon over here.
Yeah. And that's the people who watch it. So.
Yeah. So those are my favorite moments.
Jim, how excited were you when color TV was invented?
Pretty exciting. I mean, we weren't the first on our block to have a color TV. We were like the 10th, but it was a big day.
Nice.
So that you were poor and now you're old?
That's right. I've lived a life, Isaac. I've lived a life.
Okay. The mean streets of Pittsburgh.
So I guess I'll go back to Justin up for this question. But like, what happened? Bernie Sanders was at 60% odds back in early March and late February. Like, he was the odds-on favorite, even kind of just going into the election cycle, just after his showing in 2016 and how terrible Hillary Clinton did. And it's just like everyone thought that he was going to be the guy. And now he's, now it's mid to early April and he's done. What happened?
Well, I think in a lot of ways what happened is what didn't happen in the 2016 primary race. And that is that people got out of the race pretty early on. And the race, because of that, narrowed. And when it narrowed, it made it much harder for Bernie Sanders to win because, frankly, there are still a lot of people who don't support socialism in the United States. I mean, most young people do, or at least half of young people do, but older people still don't. And there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party that don't. And the real answer is right before Supers, you're going to narrow it down to a specific moment in time. This all went south for Bernie Sanders on Super Tuesday. That was when it went south for him. And the reason it went south is because there were all these people in the race at the time. The vote was all divided up. Bernie Sanders was winning races or almost winning every primary up to that point, winning or almost winning. And Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar at the last minute jump out of the race and then immediately endorse Joe Biden. Now, why did they do that? We don't know, but I think it's pretty obvious they were offered something, I think. They jump out of the race and they immediately endorse Joe Biden. And at that moment in time, Elizabeth Warren had a choice. Her choice was either I do the same thing because I have no chance of winning, which she should have known, and she probably did, and therefore help Bernie consolidate the far left base into one person, or I stay in the race and maybe I've got like a 1 in 100 shot that I actually win a couple primaries. But that probably means Bernie has no chance or a very small chance on Super Tuesday to win a lot of states. And what ended up happening was she stayed in the race and Biden ended up getting all of the non-Bernie Warren vote, or most of it. And Bernie ended up losing a bunch of states that he was projected to win because Elizabeth Warren was taking away some of the votes that he would have gotten. And Elizabeth Warren dropped out of the race. Bernie Sanders would have won a bunch of states on Super Tuesday, and he'd probably be ahead right now. If you look at the numbers, Jim, don't shake your head. You go back and look at the numbers, you'll see, take Elizabeth Warren's numbers and Bernie's numbers, add them together, and they win almost every race. Not every race, but almost every race they win.
Well, I mean, Jim, feel free to jump in. I mean, was this at any point Bernie's race to win? And I know that you and I especially have been kind of blaming the media's treatment of Bernie during all of this. So how much of the blame do they get?
Well, look, Bernie won Iowa and he won New Hampshire. In fact, I read this the other day. He's the first Democratic nominee since Ed Muskie. Very few listening to this podcast know who Ed Muskie is, but in 1972, he won Iowa, New Hampshire, did not go on to win the nomination. So Bernie Sanders is the first one since then to have that happen to him. It was funny you said, Justin, that on Super Tuesday, Bernie's campaign started to go south, and that's exactly right in both ways, because it was South Carolina. It was a diversifying of the Democratic electorate that sunk Bernie Sanders. I mean, Iowa is white and progressive. Democrats in New Hampshire are white and progressive. Democrats in places like Nevada and South Carolina and along the South and all the places where that Super Tuesday was happening are not as left and progressive and white as those other two states. And, you know, it seemed like a long shot before Super Tuesday, and it seemed almost impossible that Joe Biden was going to be able to perhaps even just save his campaign, let alone, roll on to victory like he has on Super Tuesday. He was banking it all on South Carolina and the fact that, African Americans were an enormous number, if not a majority, of voters in South Carolina in the Democratic primaries, and that diversity, basically the real Democratic Party, as the establishment would put it, was not going to vote for Bernie Sanders. They were going to vote for Joe, and they were going to put him over the top. I was pretty skeptical of that as well, and that's actually what ended up happening. I also think another factor here is that, in 2016, Bernie had his moment. You get to be, that alternative candidate just once. It's very rare for a kind of an insurgency candidacy to put itself out there on the scene in one cycle and then come back the next cycle and sweep through. The great example of that, the best example of that, is Ronald Reagan, as a matter of fact, when he challenged Gerald Ford for the Republican nomination in 1976, came very close to taking the nomination, graciously stepped aside, put his support behind Ford, watched Ford lose narrowly to Jimmy Carter, and then came back in 1980 and defined what republicanism and conservatism was for generations, multiple generations. That is an extremely rare thing to happen. And just think about it on the other side. What if Donald Trump had, one of 16, or was it 17 Republicans going for the nomination in 2016? Trump was certainly the insurgency, the outsider candidacy, this exciting thing. Let's just say that he narrowly lost to Ted Cruz, and then Ted Cruz lost to Hillary. Would Donald Trump have come back in 2020 as in a Republican nomination contest to try to win again? Probably not. And if he did, he probably wouldn't have won. You get one shot at that kind of stuff. I think Bernie, the excitement about him in 2016 was the fact that he was an insurgency candidate, that he was an outsider, that Hillary Clinton was the establishment, and she's been around for so long. You get that momentum one time, and that momentum is gone for Bernie Sanders. And while the party is very much to the left, because it wasn't just Bernie, as you mentioned, Justin, there were a lot of people on the far left in that nomination contest for the Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren. But you get one shot at that. That shot was wasted in 2016, or I shouldn't say wasted, but exhausted in 2016. And the parties decided to go with Slow Joe. That's just the way it goes.
Isaac, you thought that Bernie was going to win this nomination, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I guess I was kind of hoping more than thinking it would happen.
So if you're a betting man, would you have put money on it?
Not a lot.
Okay.
I would have put more money on Bernie than Joe Biden, though. So it shows what I know.
So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, on behalf of the Stopping Socialism Project, follow us on Facebook, Stopping Socialism. We took a bit of a victory lap. Isaac, did you see the memes that we put out there?
Oh, are those the meme followers in the Heartland Institute's page?
Well, no, but that is also the case. Check those out. Go to it. Facebook.com/Stopping Socialism. Check out those memes because I want you to rate them. We had the bartender holding up the newspaper that said "We Win," which is used in the introduction of the show Cheers. And apparently there is conflicting stories on what that newspaper is actually for. Have you heard about this? Anybody? You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so some people say that it's winning World War II, which is the one I always thought it was. Other people said it was winning the World Series, the Red Sox winning. Other people say that it's the end of Prohibition. So if you have the real answer, feel free to email us at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. But I bet it's one of those. I bet it's one of those three. And I would actually bet on Prohibition, just from the age of the guys. Just the look. It just seems to me early.
Yeah. The Red Sox hadn't won the World Series when Cheers was on. The Red Sox hadn't won the World Series since 1918. So unless the picture's from 1918,
it was an old picture. It was like a super old classic picture.
Yeah, but
not that old.
Whoa.
Not that old. I don't think.
Credit for Bernie dropping out.
Well, I think that that picture.
These memes are very misleading.
I think that it was actually
referring to should be DNC as Muhammad Ali and Bernie on the ground. And maybe you guys can be one of the fans in the background.
You're stepping all over my joke, man. I said I think that picture of the "We Win" was actually referring to Bernie Sanders losing his first presidential campaign in 1918. Then yes, we did another one with Muhammad Ali standing over a knocked out Sonny Liston, and we put "Stopping Socialism" as Muhammad Ali, and Bernie Sanders laying on the ground. Well, Come on, man! I thought those were great.
Bernie got his butt kicked by a speed bag.
Likes on that, which is insane to me. But
yeah.
I mean, Bernie Sanders got his butt kicked by a speed bag. I think Muhammad Ali could probably take him out.
That's a good point. That's fair. So we celebrated Bernie's exit, but I don't think we thought for even 1 second that this represented the end of the socialism movement in America, right, Justin?
No, look, Bernie Sanders is not the disease. He's the symptom. It's pretty obvious that there are a lot of issues, underlying causes for why Bernie Sanders is so popular. The biggest one, of course, is that the school system that we have, the school systems, not just one, but many school systems, both at the K through 12 level and higher ed and all of that, is just full of far left progressivism at minimum. And so outright socialism in many cases. And that's a big part of it. I mean, we're not teaching people the value of individual liberty. We're not talking about how free markets have liberated more people from poverty than anything else that has ever existed, any other economic system that has ever existed in the history of human civilization. We're not talking about even just in recent years. I'm not talking about 200-300 years ago. Just look at what's been happening in India and other places around the world. Hundreds of millions of people have left poverty because they've just put a little drop of capitalism into their markets that used to be basically socialist systems. And now hundreds of millions of people are leaving poverty. We're seeing it all over the world. The most successful societies that have ever existed are capitalistic societies. Do they have some socialist programs in these societies? In many cases, they do. Actually, in all cases, they do. There's no purely libertarian society on the planet. And there never has been. But I do think that it's pretty clear that that socialism in the United States is on the rise, and that it's going to continue to be on the rise for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years unless we do something to reverse that trend immediately. And it's only going to get worse as people get older, because school systems, younger people, they don't remember the Soviet Union. They don't remember communist China, the older version of communist China with Mao and other, dictators like that murdering people. They don't remember the Vietnam War. They don't remember Korea. They don't remember any of that stuff that happened. And as a result of that, coupled with the fact that they're not being taught history and they're not being taught economics, people are more likely to adopt those principles and ideas than ever before. And when you add in Hollywood and you add in the mainstream press and you add in all those other factors, which obviously lean to the left, it's just a recipe for disaster. And so we still have tons and tons of work to do. Frankly, years and years, decades perhaps of work to do. But it is a good sign that we haven't totally gone off the cliff just yet. Because if the Democratic Party isn't even willing to embrace socialism fully, then that means that there is still hope to turn things around. There is still time, not a lot, but there is still time to turn things around. And I think that is important.
Yeah. So obviously we're with Biden now. Biden's going to be the candidate unless something happens. So if Bernie Sanders is like a 90 on the socialism scale, what's Biden?
I don't know. I think it's really, I think it's really hard to tell, because the whole party has moved so far to the left in so many ways that I think it depends. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter what Biden is or isn't. It matters more what Biden would be if he was president and you had a democratically controlled Congress. And I can tell you that a lot of the people in the House, especially, but in the Senate, to a lesser degree too, but a lot of people in the House are full-blown socialists at this point. And that's going to continue moving further to the left as time goes on, because the socialist wing of the Democratic Party is kicking out establishment Democrats all over the place and replacing them with socialists. And so you're going to have that move further and further to the left. So are we going to have a Democratic Party president regardless of Joe Biden's positions? And he's pretty far to the left on a lot of different stuff. But let's say that he's more moderate than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay, fine. He is, I'm sure. But if you have the House and if Democrats take the Senate passing laws that reflect what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants, then is Joe Biden going to veto these bills when they come across his desk? I can't even remember anything like that ever happening in modern American history with a president of the same party as the people running Congress vetoing bills because they're too far in the direction of the ideology of that person's party. That just seems incredible to believe. So regardless of that, and you've seen this throughout the course of the past 20 years, even moderate Democrats are voting with far left Democrats on everything. So it doesn't really matter. The point is the Democratic Party has become a quasi-socialist party. Not totally, not full bore, but quasi-socialist party. And they are the ones who are going to be creating laws together. So if you have a president who belongs to that party and is beholden to that party's leadership in a way no president is, but in a way he is. I mean, he can only pass the laws that come across his desk. That's all he can do. Is either veto them or pass them. He can't write laws himself. I think you're going to see, if there's a Democratic Party president and there's a Democratic Party controlled Congress, you're going to see socialist legislation get through one way or another. That's the bottom line.
So, Jim, in terms of the election, the presumed candidate obviously is Biden, but we know he's a floundering candidate. He's an incredibly flawed candidate. He has a supporter enthusiasm rating of like 20%, riddled with problems. And right now, Real Clear Politics betting odds aggregate has a 10% chance spread across Hillary Clinton, Andrew Cuomo, and now Michelle Obama to take the nomination. So with Biden being the only declared candidate left in the race, only has 90%. So when all is said and done, is Biden walking away with this nomination, or are we going to see some last minute politics going on?
Oh, it's hard to say. I still think I think the betting, 90% betting on Biden having the nomination. Yeah, that's the way to bet. I think it's extremely unlikely anybody's going to come in and the Democrats are going to be able to hand the nomination to anybody. Bernie did suspend his campaign, but he's still going to be on the ballot in all those states. And that's something to keep an eye on. I don't think Bernie's going to win any other primaries. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the DNC just canceled all the other primaries and didn't even have them at all at this point. I mean, electing parties choosing their candidate through primaries state by state is just the procedure that's in place. I mean, it really is the job of the party to select their own nominee. They could change their bylaws and just do it by acclamation anytime they wanted to. It would cause a lot of discord in the party, but considering the circumstances we're living under right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see it. But, going back to what Justin said, if Biden was elected, I think it's extremely unlikely. He is still, we've talked about this with much sadness over several weeks. He is in obvious cognitive decline. I mean, the videos that his campaign has been putting out are edited videos. This is the best that Biden can do. And now he has a podcast called I forget what it's called again. Is it you know what I mean? No, wait a minute. No, that's right. Hey, here's the deal. That's right. His podcast. So this guy's got a campaign of basically just putting out podcasts every week, like us. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. But he started out by him being the star of the podcast.
Maybe we should all run as like a throuple.
Yeah. No, let's pretend that didn't just get spoken. But but now his podcast is basically he's a guest on his own podcast occasionally. That's how it's going to turn out. I mean, and it's his own podcast. I mean, this man, if the coronavirus lockdown is probably the best thing that has happened to his campaign, because the less you see of him, the more viable his candidacy is, because the more you see of him, the less viable he is as a candidate. The idea that, normally we would have three or four presidential debates on stage live in places across the country. It's extremely likely that may not happen at all, or maybe we'll have one debate, and Donald Trump will absolutely trounce him and expose him even more than he's been exposed right now. That's why I think there is an outside chance that he could be replaced on it by basically a mercy killing of his campaign, because it's getting almost embarrassing now that he can't put two sentences together that make any sense. And it's happening over and over and over again. He stops saying what he's saying and then says, "Hey, you know what I mean?" It's like, no, Joe, we don't know what you mean. You need to speak it like a person who has all of their brain faculties together, and he's unable to do it. But let's just say that he was the nominee and that he was elected president. It's not going to be his presidency. It's going to be the presidency of his handlers. It's going to be the presidency of his vice president, and it's going to be the presidency of the left one way or another. That is, if the left, as Justin keeps putting forth, is controlled and increasingly controlled by socialists, that the Democratic Party is now the party of AOC and the Squad, that it is the party of Bernie Sanders. If that's the case, Joe Biden would be basically a puppet president, and his agenda and his policies would be controlled by others, and those others being the hard leftists in the Democratic Party. That's actually kind of the worst case scenario at this point, because Joe Biden is not in a position to advance his own agenda, because he can't even articulate his own agenda, because he's just sadly in cognitive decline.
So Bernie Sanders is 78. He'll be 82 this time next general election cycle. So there's no chance at him running again, right? Like he's retiring. He's going to one of his three homes, staying there.
I think so.
Yeah, no chance.
Okay. All right. So then
When has reality ever stopped Bernie from doing anything? I won't count him out.
that's a good point. I did not think he was going to run in 2020 just based on age. But no, he did it and he put up a good fight. But I guess we could just say farewell to Bernie Sanders. Isaac, I would cue the music if you were going to sing, goodbye or one of those songs if you want. I'll take that as a no. But okay, fine. Farewell, Bernie Sanders. You're done. It was good. It was a good moment in the sun. You got some.
Well, AOC is going to be the nominee next time around.
Okay,
so,
well,
this is all kind of a moot point.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask that because
I keep stepping on your segments.
No. You know what? I was going to ignore that, but I was definitely going to say, and I've said it before, it's not like socialism is done in America now. He dropped the flag. Someone else is going to pick it up. Is there anybody who you see as the person that 4 years from now all the Bernie bros are backing as their democratic socialist of choice? I mean, do you really think it's going to be AOC? Is that serious, Isaac, or is that a joke?
Oh, I think she'll run.
Anyone else? Anyone other names out there that might get a? Because my fear is that like a younger, more charismatic person picks up the flag. Somebody that's not a walking joke like Bernie Sanders. And that will be a little bit more of a scary combatant opponent for us.
So what's interesting about this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is 30 years old. Her birthday is in October. She won't be eligible to run next time, right?
I think she will, because I think you have to be 31 by the time you'd assume the office. At least that's my non-scholarly look at it.
You got to be. I think you got to be 35.
Yeah,
but she'll be 31
this year.
Right.
You're saying
now?
Oh, right.
Yeah,
she'll be 35 just barely before the election, so she probably will be eligible then.
Wow,
I would imagine just barely. She would
it's
be
like math
right.
or something.
Yeah, you're right, Isaac. That is math.
No, we got to call up Andrew Yang. He might be able to help us out.
Well, I just don't know when the eligibility. Does it have to be before election day, or does it have to be by the time of primaries, or what? I mean, I guess they could probably make the rules anything they want, right?
I mean, the Constitution just says the president needs to be 35. So
right. But the party can make any rules they want. So they could say you have to be 35 to be on the ticket. But I don't know if that's what they do. They may not. I don't think it's ever really seriously come up. This might be the first time. So actually, she would be eligible, I think, to run. So in that case, yeah, she's definitely running, right? How does she not run? She's got to run. That just seems so her. And if she does run, would she win? Probably not. But she would set herself up for another run at some point in the future. And I think at that point is when she probably hopes she has a legitimate shot, right? Because the next time around, she would be almost 40. She's been around for a long time, assuming she continues on in her political career. And the party would move even further to the left, I think, is what she's expecting. So I would say that 2028 makes the most sense for her as a serious contender for president, depending on whether Biden wins this time around. Actually, no, it doesn't even matter whether Biden wins. It would be 2028 would be the first time she's a serious contender, probably.
Ugh, gosh.
But she's going to stick around. Donnie, everybody. All right, we're going to put this on the record officially.
Yeah,
Donnie
let's do it.
He and I have a bet already in existence right now that says that whether AOC is going to be around, what is it? Is it 4 years from now?
When we made the bet, it was like 5 years, but that was probably a year ago.
Right. So 4 years from now, Donnie thinks AOC is not even going to be on. She's gone.
I said that she'll be a contributor to like MSNBC.
Right. But she won't be in Congress.
Let's have Isaac and Jim weigh in on that. Jim, what do you think?
I'm with you, Donnie. I think it's actually still an open question whether or not she's going to win. She's going to be primaried, and whether or not she gets out of the House. I mean, I think she'd actually probably rather be Speaker of the House than President of the United States. So, if she does stay in Congress, that's what she's going to be aiming for. But I think there's a great chance that she won't even be in politics by 2028.
Isaac, are you on Team Justin or Team Donald?
I'm on Team Justin.
Of course you are. All right, you guys stink.
Famous politicians never lose elections like that. Almost never.
I think the only thing that would get her away from her seat is a huge paycheck from some CNN, MSNBC.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't even think that would do it. I think the only way she leaves the House is if she runs for the Senate. I think that she'll be around forever. She's just going to
be still primary crying Chuck Schumer.
We'll mark the tape. Episode 238. We'll have this bet 4 years from now. We'll revisit it when we're in episode 460. We'll
God, are we still going to be doing this in 4 years? I don't know. We need to reevaluate our life choices if that's the case.
All right, let's talk about COVID. Coronavirus. Okay, so we've had enough doom and gloom when it comes to this topic.
I've got a little more gloom.
No.
John Prine, my favorite musician, has passed away of COVID. Very sad. No, for real. But at least it can't get worse from here. So I guess that's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, we're past the darkest part of the tunnel.
The worst has already hit us.
That's right. So last episode, I was referencing a website that is put together by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington. They run a site that basically tracks COVID-19 and makes projections based on those numbers. There are two main charts that they estimate is hospital resource use and death toll. And they update their numbers and projections like every few days. It's not every day, but it's pretty, frequent. So I'm a numbers guy, so I follow these projections on a pretty much a daily basis. So last week, the projected hospital resource use was April 15th, and the projected death toll was 95,000 people. They updated their numbers on Sunday, so, almost a week ago, and their death toll was lowered to 81,000, a 13% decrease. Then on Wednesday, just a couple of hours before I found out that Bernie Sanders dropped out of the election, I saw that those numbers were revised again, and the death toll was lowered to 60,000. So going from 95 to 60,000 is nearly a 40% decrease. That's in like 5 days. And then in Illinois specifically, Sunday's numbers suggested that Illinois was going to face a potential death toll of 3,600. Wednesday's update dropped that down to 1,500, a nearly 60% decrease. Jim, how is this not headline news?
It's not headline news because it's not good news for the media wanting to take out Donald Trump. I think the real story here is how awful these models have been. I'm sorry to go. This isn't doom and gloom. This is just straight up criticism. The media, especially the government. Let's just say that has been putting forth. They put forth models. We shut down our entire economy. We shut down everything. We put, what is it now? 16. We're approaching 20 million people out of work, based on these models put out by our government betters, are the best scientists, the experts that we have to listen to and obey at all times. They were off by factors of 4 to 6 on how much our hospital systems would be stressed, how many people would get sick, how many people would be deathly ill, and how many people would die. We're talking, they were saying that at the minimum, the best case scenario was 200,000 Americans dead. They said this a month ago. The sainted Dr. Fauci, who the media, when you watch these press conferences, treats as if, he's Moses coming down from the mountain with the tablets. He was saying, first of all, you can say 2 months ago, at the end of January, he was saying this was not going to be a big deal in the United States. Then he changes his tune and says this is going to be a serious problem, and that 200,000 plus Americans could die, and that we have to shut down the entire economy, and that maybe we have to shut down the economy and be this way for 18 months, 19 months, that this is the new normal. But all of these government projections have been so spectacularly wrong, and we need to know, the American people have a right to know how the hell that happened. And we should also be questioning, we are really shutting down the entire economy based on these numbers. And these numbers, mind you, were with maximum social distancing as well. So don't let anybody sell you the idea that we're only doing better because we're doing so great at social distancing. That's not what this is. That's not what those projections were. This is a huge scandal, and it is wonderful that the death projections in the United States are going to be around 60,000, maybe 80,000, which again is kind of like a typical bad flu season in the United States. But we have created enormous, and for a lot of people in this country, unrecoverable economic hardship. For what? Based on these models. We need to know how the hell that happened and make sure it doesn't happen again, and have the government stop lying to us. We can handle the truth. It's wonderful that these numbers have been adjusted downward, but why were they so high to begin with? And we need to start getting America back to work, if not back to complete normalcy, but back to work right away.
So I just looked at the numbers again, and they were revised basically as I was speaking, I think. And now in Illinois, so I said that it was 3,600 down to 1,500. Now it's projected for 777. So just from like a week ago, it dropped almost 3,000. That's like it's like a fifth of what it was originally. That's pretty amazing. So I mean, they basically say a lot of these charts, not the nationwide, and obviously this varies state by state. But check out the website if you're interested in all this. But at least for Illinois, it says that it's basically a bottoming out of cases by May 1. So Jim, should I start thinking about finding my non-pajama pants? Are we going to be back to work soon, or what?
Yeah, I think you should do some iron those non-pajama pants and get them ready for work, because I think we need to start going back to work. I mean, look, the USS Comfort, I think that's the name of the ship, the hospital ship in New York Harbor. It is almost completely empty. It was sent there to be able to hold people that would normally be in the hospital, so there'd be more hospital beds for people in New York City. Even the most stressed city in the United States is not running out of hospital beds, and the Comfort is not even I don't think a third full. There are hospitals that are actually sending doctors and nurses home because there isn't enough patients to deal with here. This is an enormous scandal. We have to understand what happened here and why. I mean, I'm glad we had to be prepared for the worst, but not that much of the worst. Why were we being lied to? Why were these models so wrong? And why, again, do we have to continue to shut down this entire country, this entire economy for more weeks and weeks, maybe months on end, when it is not necessary? This is a huge, huge deal. People are not going to recover from this.
So Isaac, well, first off, again, going back to this Illinois chart. So Pritzker, our governor, was like at like Trump's throat because they requested thousands of ventilators, and the Trump's administration only gave us 600. So now the peak invasive ventilators needed, according to this projection, is less than 400. So yeah, I guess Pritzker looks a little silly. I'm sure he won't apologize. In the past few weeks, I've been asking you guys how worried you are about all this. I was asking for a ranking of 0 to 10. Forget that. I want to ask you, how sick are you of being at home? So Isaac, 0 to 10.
So last week I was at like an 8. I just hated it right away. I'm actually cooling down a little bit. I'm remembering what it's like to work from home. So I'm like down at like a 4 right now. Okay. But I did want to add this part to it, because when we talk about the models that are being used, it seems like people don't realize that bad models make bad forecasts, and bad forecasts make for bad policy. And I'm just wondering, and I'm spitballing here. When we look at the models that are used to justify all of like the climate change regulations, they're also overestimating the amount of warming that we'll have from CO2 in the atmosphere. So, like, how do you think that this influences things moving forward? Because, in Minnesota particularly, our governor is like, oh, well, we need to shut down everything until May 4th, yada, yada, yada. And the University of Minnesota predicted something insane, like 74,000 deaths in the state of Minnesota with their modeling. So I guess, Jim, do you think that we can point to this in the future and say, look what happens when we rely on really bad models? Or do you think that that's not going to translate?
No, it definitely translates. I mean, the models for the climate models, the computer climate models for the last 20 years have been wildly off base. And they're trying to predict the weather and the climate 100 years from now, when, they can't even model what's going to happen to to a trackable in real time virus a week from now. And the computer modeling, as I say, garbage in, garbage out. And the same thing goes with the climate. It's been that way for decades.
Yeah, I guess I totally agree with that. I guess my question is, do you think people will get it? Do you think that messaging will resonate with people? Because, we would hope that it does, but I just don't know if it's going to.
I think it will, because
Justin, what do you think?
I think it definitely will.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Because I think
I just think that models are such a black box.
Yeah, I think that the problem with convincing people of anything is that the media is so controlled by one side of all these different positions that they shape the conversation in such a way that it's very hard to break through that. Obviously, we have people trying to break through that, and there are people at the Heartland Institute and Center of the American Experiment and elsewhere are trying very hard to do that, but it's not easy to do. And it takes a lot of work in order to make that happen. I think really the bigger issue is actually not the climate models themselves in terms of the effect that they have, the effect that CO2 emissions have on warming. And how that relates to a bunch of other things, like how warming then, because it's not just one model, it's models on models on models, right? So it's how much warming are we going to have as a result of CO2? But before you answer that question, you need to know how much CO2 you're going to have. And then once you figure out how much CO2 you're going to have and then how much warming you're going to have, then you need a whole nother model that says how much warming is going to cause sea levels to rise, or hurricane intensity to increase, and all of these other things, wildfire. So now you've got like multiple models on multiple models, right? But in addition to all of that, the bigger issue, I think, is actually that nobody really cares how much temperatures are going to go up. What they really care about is, are people going to be hurt by it? Like, that's what they really care about. And what the models definitely show, what this definitely without question shows, is that modelers are really bad. Scientists, social scientists, and hard scientists are really bad at predicting what humans are going to do under any set of conditions. They're really bad at predicting it. And all of these models tend to be very linear, or more linear than they should be, in the sense that they'll say, like, for instance, when you look at a lot of climate models and their impact on deaths, you'll see that they have a tendency to think that as temperatures get warmer, you're going to have all these people dying from heat, essentially, from heat waves and stuff like that. Ignoring that, even if you had additional heat waves, even if you accept that premise and you say there's going to be all these additional heat waves, that people won't just react to that and have more air conditioners or have better, have better buildings. This is 80 years off into the future, 50 years into the future in some of these cases, right?
It's basically assuming that social distancing, masks. Yeah.
Right. And the same thing is true with sea level rise and with all these other things. It's like, well, the sea levels are rising. They're going to swallow whole cities. No, they're not. Even if the sea levels were actually rising to the degree that they're worried they're going to rise, they will figure out a solution to prevent cities from being swallowed by the ocean. That's not going to happen. So the idea that they can predict human behavior, to me, is the real issue, regardless of whether they can predict warming. And I don't think they're particularly good at predicting anything that far into the future. But regardless of, even if you could predict it and you could get it right, you can't predict humans react really, really well to adverse situations if given the opportunity and the freedom to do that. They figure it out. And all these models pretend like they can't figure it out and that they're just going to die. It's just going to get hotter, so they're going to die. It's just going to get hotter, so they're just going to starve. They don't build any ingenuity into these things and say, well, human beings will figure out how to deal with these different situations. And for me, that's always been the thing I fall back on, regardless of what happens. I don't really care what the temperature is going to be like in 100 years, to be honest, because I think humans will be fine. It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. It could be really cold, could be really warm. I have no idea. I don't care. What I care about is whether humans will survive. Will animals survive? Well, that's what I care about. And I believe that humans will be just fine regardless. And how does that connect to this? I think it connects to this, in that the biggest reason why these models, I think, are unquestionably off is because they did a really bad job of predicting how people would react to it, I think is a big part of it. And what people would do and how this would all, and how hospital systems would be affected and all of that. A lot of that has to do with human decision making and all sorts of different things that they can't predict very well. And I think that's the reason why a lot of these models are always, they always seem to be wrong. Can someone find me a model that's predicting something, anything 30 years into the future that's right? It seems like they never get anything right. And this wasn't even 30 years into the future. This was just a couple months into the future, and they didn't get it right. So it's just really hard to make these predictions.
Isaac's a model, and he's always right. So, guys, I think the other thing to think about. So May 1st, I really think that like we're going to be back to work May 1st. I think restaurants and bars will be right on top of that too. They're just itching to get their doors open. But I think we could also kind of look at these big businesses as a kind of a bellwether of when we're going to kind of get back to business. And the MLB, I was looking up all of these just before the show. The MLB is increasingly focused on restarting their season. I think they're seeing these numbers kind of trending down and the projections trending down, and they're trying to really think of when we're going to open up. And obviously they're going to slow roll it because they don't want to do it too quickly and risk lawsuits and, or whatever if people get sick when they're at a game or something like that. But the MLB is apparently looking at June. Similarly with Disneyland and Universal Studios, they're looking forward to a June 1st reopen. And there is many more stories about the MLB and people in the NHL or whatever. And they're kind of talking about when they foresee kind of getting back to business. So I think we're starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel, folks. And, I couldn't be happier. It's beautiful days the past couple of days, although it has gotten colder. It snowed yesterday here. So, but we know that spring is just around the corner. Get some warm weather here. Gentlemen, any other last bits of info? Want to get off your chest, stories, anything like that before we sign off for the week?
I do have one last bit of info.
What's
I want
that?
to prove that Jim is wrong about what he said before about Bernie Sanders.
Oh
I
man,
can't
we just
let it go.
pile on Jim. This should be called
Can't.
the Pile on Jim podcast.
Pile
We
on
could.
Jim
That's
section.
not a bad name for it. If we go back to Super Tuesday, Joe Biden won 10 races out of, I think, 14. If you look at the 10 races that he won and you just add Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren together, in more than half of those 10 races, Biden would have lost. And in most, and including many of the highest delegate races, like Texas, for instance, Bernie would have won significantly. That had 228 delegates. Minnesota, he would have won really easily. That had 75. Massachusetts, he would have won that easily. That has 91. So if if Elizabeth Warren hadn't been in the race, as I said before, Bernie Sanders would actually be your nominee right now. So I really think that if you're a Bernie bro and you're out there right now and somehow you stumbled upon this podcast, blame Elizabeth Warren. It's all her fault.
No. Blame Bernie. He shouldn't have lied about Elizabeth Warren on stage.
That's what
got her so mad, right?
You know what? Maybe that's true. Maybe Bernie did this to himself. One lie too many, Bernie.
One lie too many. Bernie Sanders out of the race. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the In the Tank podcast. Please join us every Friday for a new episode. If you like our show, please subscribe or review for us on iTunes. We'd greatly appreciate it. You can also find us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, pretty much everything nowadays. If you'd like, you can follow us on Twitter at In the Tank Pod. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, feel free to email us at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. Justin, where can the fine people find you?
At Justin T. Haskins on Facebook and Twitter.
And Jim Lakely, where can the fine people find you?
You can find me at www. I'm angry about COVID lies / Creed thoughts. And also at J Lakely on Twitter, at Heartland Inst on Twitter, and heartland.org.
And Isaac, last but not least, where can the fine people find you?
The fracking guy on Twitter.
Boom. Man, a few words. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.